Thank you. Thank you for being here at an hour earlier than our other panels and on the last day. We really appreciate it. We're excited to share our information with you guys and hopefully give you a lot of good takeaways. We're going to start with a couple of quick introductions and then jump right in. So as Donald said, I'm the Director of Marketing and Sales for Tour Cayuga. Yesterday, I think it was, there was a comment on one of the panels that they appreciated seeing a smaller DMO up on the stage and being able to scale some of these ideas, and I really related to that because you're looking at one of 5 for my whole destination, and being able to multitask is an understatement, but we really appreciate conferences like this. I think there's been a lot of great content that we can take away from it. So, Danny, about you.
Good morning, everybody. Wow. It's a thin crowd this morning, but that was to be expected, right? But we appreciate that you guys are all here because obviously this is a topic that I think a lot of people are seeking guidance on. I'm Danny, and who am I? I guess I am somebody who's really passionate about the topic we're discussing today. I started the Culturist group a little over 2 years ago to really help build a more inclusive travel industry by empowering folks like yourselves to figure out paths to authentic storytelling and connection to community. And so my background is over 20 years in travel and tourism marketing and public relations advertising. I was previously with MMGY, heading up their LA office and helped co-found the DEI Council there and have worked at various agencies, DMOs, tour operators, hotel companies, and found myself often wondering why I wasn't represented in those campaigns, why I wasn't, my intersectional identity wasn't considered when we were planning media or talking about KPIs. So I could go on and on and on, but for now I'll pass it on to Kimber.
Hi, I'm Kimber Foster. I'm the Director of Palm Springs Tourism. I work with Visit Greater Palm Springs, but I have the pleasure of representing the Visit Palm Springs brand, which we like to say is kind of the Greater Palm Springs edgier little sister. I have more than 20 years experience in marketing communications. I've been in the travel sector for about 12 years now. I'm from Texas and moved to California because I really wanted to be in a community that was a little bit more diverse and a state that's a little bit more, I shouldn't say this, but politically forward thinking. So I'm just really excited to represent Palm Springs and be here with you today to share some of the things that we're doing at our destination. And I'll turn it over to Mo.
Great, thank you everyone for joining us this morning. My name is Mo Parikh. I'm the founder and CEO of Bandwango. Launched this company in 2015, as I mentioned, after a long career in the biotech world. Initially, this company was actually to help solve a problem that I had, which was I am a really avid traveler, and I'm always looking for unique, off-the-beaten-path things to do. I don't like to go to the major attractions and markets. And so this company initially started to help work with a lot of communities to create fun, unique, and authentic experiences. We work with nearly 500 different DMOs and CVBs across North America, and we've now built nearly 2,000 experiences with our partners. So very excited about this topic today and excited to talk to you around some of the EDI-focused passports we've created.
Awesome. How exciting is this panel, guys? The wealth of knowledge between the 3 and 4 of us. So I want to kind of set the tone for our panel. Yesterday we heard several sessions, and I really only think I heard the word diversity maybe 5 times and the term diversity, equity, inclusion once. And what we kind of felt we wanted to touch on was intentionality and kind of the work before you put all of this digital work out. So we have a really great flow here. We're going to kind of start with Danny talking about some of the reasons why and how to implement these takeaways into your strategies. Kimber about implementing that, and then Mo with some data and once the visitor is in destination. So I'm going to pass it to Danny, who has the clicker.
Thanks, Claire. So I'm calling this Throwback Thursday. It is Thursday, right? 2 years ago, I was on the stage of Bright Shiny New Objects. I believe, Mo, you guys were also.
2015.
Nice, a bright, shiny new product. And I showed this video I'm about to show to really kind of give context about some of the research that at the time existed regarding the importance of representation and just the overall shifts, right, in demographics and what consumers are telling us about how they want to be represented. And it kind of sets up what the Culturist group does, but it's more than the promotional video. It's really talking about some of these insights and about the importance of cultural relevance to consumers in terms of seeing themselves. So. I'll cut it short because it's just a shameless promotion. You can see the video at culturistgroup.com. But more than anything was some of the data points there. One of the, originally the purpose of research for diverse audiences was to kind of quantify the why. DEI, if you remember a couple years back, was all about doing the right thing, but also lately, if you talk about ROI, people questioning, well, what is the ROI on DEI and inclusion? The argument that we hold is that the future is multicultural, it's inclusive and intersectional, and also by inclusive, it's not just people of color, it's not just people of different orientations, a viewpoint. It's really a values-based approach to understanding what that future looks like. And so one of the things that I wanted to do is partner up with other organizations that really have this hypothesis around what does the future look like? What are people, appreciating in terms of destinations, sustainability, innovation, tech innovation, and community stewardship and connection. And I know that Claire and Kimber do a lot of that work locally in their destinations, and you do probably as well. So the Future of Travel study was launched this January as a first ever look into intersectional needs, meaning that not just by group, not just Black, Hispanic, LGBTQ, white, or Gen Z or millennial, but all those things together, and trying to figure out what the future looks like. I argue the future is now. When you talk about population growth, you talk about some of the narratives, right, that we have out in the industry, but admittedly, the future can be hard to navigate. So consumer insights and research, which is really what I believe is the most important, tells us that these individuals want to see themselves, and they want brands to appreciate who they are and reflect who they are. But political narratives, obviously, as you've seen in the headlines, are really confusing, especially for travel brands and destinations who sometimes stay away from some of these, politically charged conversations. Just some examples here of what we've been seeing in the media, right? This is a really interesting point regarding LGBTQ and GLAAD, which talks about that of the percent of non-LGBTQ people, 70% agreeing that companies should include in advertising, for example, representation of folks. So I think we have to divide the whole political climate and the DEI fatigue conversation from what consumers are saying, what your customers are saying in this conversation. But if we think about the future, I think for us it's really thinking about belonging, right? And the idea of feeling like you belong somewhere. And how do we build that? So one of the things that we were able to do with this great project, which was in partnership with a company called Share More Stories, Ezra Calver Consulting, we thank Virginia Tourism Corporation for sponsoring and underwriting at Miles Partnership as well, is doing a story-based research project which used an AI model to assess how individuals explain their travel experiences. I'll let you read this clip a little bit while I get some water. So the study goals really was to uncover emotional drivers, really kind of what are the experiences people are looking for, what are the barriers to being included. Its goal was to provide you with the data points to really understand the emotional considerations. So a lot of this conference talks about, right, digital marketing and innovation, right, reaching our KPIs and our ROI, but a lot of the work that goes into it is the creative message, is the context and the content that is just as important as, as how you're deploying it and resources you're providing. So this study really kind of talks about both sides of the equation. For the purposes of this conversation today, I'll be talking more about the kind of psychographic emotional insights. But one of the great things that we uncovered early on was this amazing receptiveness from the people we were talking to and recruiting, and talking about that sometimes their voice is hard to be heard. A lot of the research that's out there also talks about how, sometimes people of color feel like travel is inequitable to them still. So just having a project that went out and talked to folks and asked them how they felt about their travel experience. This is not like a quantitative study where we ask you to say yes, no, how much, how many, how often, who did you go with. It's about, tell me the last time you went somewhere. The stories were really amazing from all around the country. People talking about camping trips, trips to New Orleans, to New York City, and talking about some of the challenges they had as trans people or an Asian family or what have you. But kind of synthesizing, because I know we don't have a lot of time, is really the big picture here, right? So your future audience is likely to be far more diverse, one, inclusive, and be intersectional in the way they identify, whether it's ethnicity, race, culture, politics, what have you. It's a complicated world out there that I think requires some work and effort to understand. The importance of deepening connections with consumers is really, really key, and trust is a big part of that, is making sure people, of course, not only are seeing themselves, in the work that we do, we talk about the 4 R's, so representation, relevance, resonance, and reach. A lot of times, I see a lot of DMOs do a really good job now of representation, right? But is there that reach and there's that resonance that you need in your marketing? So the emerging narrative is really about human connection, about making memories, about personal growth and transformation, and cultural immersion, right? So how do you celebrate the full intersectional identity of folks and communities, not just the obvious ones, not just the ones that are easy to get a hold of, but the ones that require some work. And then we also see for people of color specifically, and this has been true for a while now, if you look at movements like the Black Travel Alliance or No Madness Tribe, the idea of travel being a positive impact on their lives, on our lives as people of color, and what it means to overcome personal challenges by traveling and seeing the world, seeing different destinations. From a trip planning perspective, over 2/3 of all respondents are always and occasionally factor in their own identity, culture, or background. And this is a hypothesis we were trying to prove. This is especially true for Black and marginalized communities like LGBTQ. They need to see themselves, and sometimes this one-size-fits-all approach, while it's easy and efficient, is not necessarily the most effective path. I'm gonna speed through some of these and land on the takeaways, but I think ultimately what we wanna talk about is this path to belonging. So if building trust ultimately leads us to belonging, what are the things that we have to really take into account, right? What are the 3 big takeaways we wanna leave you with this morning? And so the first is this idea of maximizing joy. So the research actually put out, and the research is available for purchase. It has these indices on emotional drivers that goes from anger to sadness to joy to anxiety. And we saw that for this group, again, an intersectional group that includes a lot of different individuals, but over-indexes for Black and LGBTQ folks, Hispanic folks, Asian folks, which many studies don't do. We saw that joy is an emotionally relevant concept to folks, meaning that once they can see themselves, that the trust is there, the belonging is there, that they feel safe, there's an immense amount of joy that you can really leverage to connect with people in terms of, social media engagement, brand campaigns, the way you position, the expected output of what happens when they come to your destination. So that was a really important insight. The second is the idea of removing psychological barriers and increasing access. I know Mo's gonna talk about just what increasing access looks like to products that are culturally relevant and resonant with your identity or different multicultural identities. But anxiety shows up a lot, especially for Black and LGBTQ consumers. A lot of things that we found that they told us were like, we just want to see more information on your website. We want to understand how we're seen. It's not just about being on your website, but if I'm looking at your brand advertising, how am I represented there? So that was a really interesting thing. And then lastly, just hiring experts to help engage. This is loud, I'm loud this morning. To help engage with authentic cultural representation and personalization. So it's been really an honor to work with Claire on the next campaign we're about to show that really talks about, I think, when you talk about authentic cultural representation in the destination space, it's really about community. And community really is, I think, at the center of what we're talking about today when we talk about these diverse audiences.
Thanks, Danny. That was a lot and wonderful. Yeah, spoiler alert with Danny. But we did not bring in an agency to start building our creative and get our messaging out there until, Danny said last night, the 11th hour. We put years of intention and work into building EDI into our organization, both as individuals and into the organization and company as a whole. And what that work looked like was years of building relationships and partnerships with our community, bringing people to the table who had not been brought to the table before. And on this slide that you can all see, if we could go to the next one. Oh, I have it. I can go to the next one. We are very proud of that image of Harriet Tubman. It is one of the very few and first colorized images that really reflects who she was and gives her a true identity. I think the work for the Culturist group for that, when they first sent us that, I was like, ooh, that was a lot of liberty. Like, okay, we're doing this. But as I said, we had built those stakeholders and that trust and a relationship with our community, and we brought this to our committees, to her descendants, to make sure that it was accurate, that it was a way that they want her represented. So that was really important work.
I think the idea for her image also was to actualize her and give her a place now. A lot of times when we talk about Harriet Tubman, we talk about the past, right? But when we went to the community and started sitting down and had these powerful conversations, people were telling us about the connections they felt today, about what she did for that community, why she lived there, and the impact she had on the region. So for us, it was important to really make sure that we were actualizing this for people and giving a new perspective to her personality.
Yeah, and that was definitely a theme that came out in the discussions within our communities, bringing her to the now. And, excuse me. Oh, I just went blank there. Danny, what did you just say?
Well, no, we were talking about the architecture of the campaign and the community.
Yes, thank you. So like I said, there was a lot of work, years of work that we went into before we brought in somebody to help us craft this message, to craft the creative and get it out there. As I mentioned before, we're a very small destination, and our content library was somewhat limited at the time. And I know Kimber will touch on this too. This is not exclusive to our Cayuga, but we will only work with local models and the families in our communities. I love the story about the Harley-Davidson Museum yesterday. That was great. We did a similar thing. We followed a family around who just moved to us. For a year, we followed them, and they got to experience our destination in real time, and that really translates to when you actually can implement this and put it out into the world. And I think we have a quick video of the creative that the Culturist group helped us with. Yeah, it's going now.
Is that video?
Can we play that video? No?
We can talk about the video a little bit.
We can talk about the video.
So obviously and do we want to go back? So one of the things we wanted to do with this campaign was after the creative messaging, I just want to make sure we have the right one. The creative messaging was built around the right audiences. We talked about the importance of reflecting audiences. There's been conversations also about excluding folks. What happens when you, in the approach to being inclusive, you actually end up excluding folks and what that means. And the thing that we took about Cayuga County and the Finger Lakes is like, it's a very special place, not only because of Harriet Tubman's legacy there and the community and the burgeoning kind of small black business base that's growing there again, but also because it would attract a certain type of audience. And so for the targeting and the actual paid media strategy, a lot of what we did was look at contextual insights of our target markets, right, in the New York area, in Toronto, to make sure we were finding people who were actively interested in Black heritage tours and cultural experiences. And we actually deployed 2 videos. This is a screenshot of one of them, which is a great, you can find it on our website as well, but talked a little bit more about Black heritage, culture, and representation in terms of the tagline, where you go matters, make it count. The idea that we were reaching for a psychographic connection to the community versus trying to be everything to everybody, and we talked a little bit about that too.
Absolutely. The days of trying to be everything for everyone are definitely in the past, especially for us. And I think something that was important to us while we want to elevate Harriet Tubman's message, and I'm going to back up real quick. If you don't know, Auburn is the chosen hometown of Harriet Tubman. For over 50 years of her life, she lived there, and she's buried at Fort Hill Cemetery. So it's a very important trip for a lot of people and families to come and learn about their history and see how it impacts today. But as Danny said, we did kind of 2 versions of these videos, a similar A/B test, and what we found was it exceeded our expectations in our office. But the importance of working with an agency and really building a partnership with somebody who shares the same passions, the same values, the same goals. And again, that's something that translates into the creative and making sure that we can get those deliverable results. I can go back to my board and my stakeholders and say, look at what this partnership built and how we can work on this momentum and keep it moving forward. So,
And also, you know, we were talking about dispersal, right? So it's a big county upstate.
it's a small county, but yeah.
It's a small county with a lot to offer. It feels big to me. But there's a lot that's not related to Harriet Tubman, right? If you're going kayaking in one of your beautiful lakes or a winery, how do you connect the message, right? So this idea of creating a campaign that was encompassing around the identity of the person, right? Are you imagined, which also plays into, I think, stewardship and sustainability considerations when you're talking about getting the right person to the destination. So really proud of the work. Thank you for allowing us to be there.
Wonderful, and we could go on for forever, but we're really excited to share what Visit Greater Palm Springs is doing. Kimber?
Thank you so much. So this is actually part of our Visit Palm Springs campaign, How Do You Palm Springs? Palm Springs has long been known as a destination kind of to Hollywood A-listers and the stars, but we really do have a lot of accessible experiences for anybody, all ages, all races, all sizes, all orientations, you name it. I do feel like we offer a lot. So how do you Palm Springs? We took Palm Springs, made it a verb, and it really is about creating that personal, one-of-a-kind experience that only you can have in our destination. So I just wanted to kind of show you the faces of our campaign, and then I'll show you a sizzle reel as well.
Can we play that video? Is that a video?
Can you guys play the video back there?
I just want to make a comment about our city. We've always heard jokes kind of about our town and how it's for older people and there's just aging people there and it's no fun. But really, when you think about your marketing, it's so important to take a look at your surroundings. Who are the people in your community? Who are your partners, your stakeholders? Who are the guests that you're seeing visiting when you're downtown? And that really does depict who, you know, the sampling of our visitors are, and our community as well too. We have a very strong and very rich LGBTQ plus community. A lot of the actors that you saw, we just kind of seamlessly blended in some transgender actors, a lot of African American actors, Asian. It just really is about taking a look at your community and also, like Danny said, doing the research, talking to your partners, finding out who these people are in the community that are making things move and shape. So just wanted to share that with you all. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm going to pass it on to Mo now.
Awesome, thank you. Can I get the clicker? Great, so now that we've sort of talked a lot around, you know, the why and some data and some tactics and what some of our colleagues are doing to drive visitors and locals into our communities, I want to spend some time talking a little bit around the experience part of this. i.e. you're driving a visitor or even a local back into their backyard. And what we're largely focused on is working with a lot of DMOs and CVBs to help you craft experiences that are fundamentally designed to encourage community engagement. And I think that's a really important topic to talk about here because a lot of times in the marketing world, we focus on quantitative metrics, right? Things that we can show via numbers that really prove the ROI of the impact that we're having. When it comes to how we sort of look at EDI or DEI-focused experiences, I'm a big proponent that it's not necessarily all about the numbers. There are quantitative aspects that we can measure that help us understand the impact that this work is having, but there's also qualitative things that occur when we start to craft experiences that are inherently more diverse, that are out of the box, that are off the beaten path, that aren't necessarily the mainstream type of activities that a lot of the traditional tours, activities, and attractions world is used to promoting, right? There's a big, big need and want from travelers these days to find authentic, off-the-beaten-path fun things to do. Whenever I go to a new city, one of my Google terms is usually like hidden gem blank or off-the-beaten-path blank, because I'm not as necessarily interested in the major attractions. I'm interested in the mom and pop shops, the unique food, the really cruel cultural sites and the murals and all these things. And the challenge in the traditional sort of online travel agency model today is because they're direct to consumer, they need to look at the numbers, right? There has to be an ROI in what they're marketing and selling. But that being said, there's so much more to do in these markets and in these cities. And I think all of you sit in a really unique position in that you're not profit-driven. You have a responsibility to feature and focus all of the things either that your destination is known for or that you want your destination to be known for. And so I'm going to quickly go through just sort of 5 key things that I really believe contribute to community engagement when you start to think about crafting experiences that are maybe out of the norm, not necessarily these things that are commonplace. One, as we all know, these can be used to promote diversity, not only celebrating cultures, but also heritages and different perspectives in the different markets that we work in. 2, increasing accessibility, I think, is important. A lot of times when we talk about DEI, we focus sometimes a lot on cultural diversity, on things that relate to a person's heritage. But there's also physical diversity. There's mental disabilities. There's other areas of accessibility that we should be really looking at and crafting experiences that can help meet the needs of those individuals as well. Educational opportunities is a really interesting one where it's not just around, doing that whiskey tasting or doing that, high-flying attraction. People a lot of times crave education and learning when they're visiting new markets and new destinations. And if you can craft experiences that can help teach and allow somebody to learn about the history, struggles, and contributions of various groups, people will then leave your city with learning something new and creating a different sort of style of memory that they're always going to remember your city as a place that provided for them. Now, economic support is a reality, and I think this is something that we can measure, and it is also important because one of the things one of the questions that we'll talk about is, the notion of DEI versus EDI. I think, providing fairness and equitable and equal opportunities to a lot of businesses that perhaps don't have the expertise, don't have the budget, don't have the reach, perhaps having language barriers, and being able to provide some type of economic support by driving customers into the doors of those businesses is, I think, a very, very powerful aspect of these types of programs and experiences. And then lastly, community pride and cohesion, I think, is something that's really important. We talk a ton around visitors, leisure and business travelers in this industry a lot. one of the things I think that COVID really highlighted was the significance and the importance of locals and residents. Not only the powerful effect of visiting friends and relatives, the VFR effect, but also the notion that if your residents and your locals are happy and have pride in the markets and the cities that they live in, they're going to become your best ambassadors. And I think creating that community pride and cohesion is a really great way to foster a sense of pride among your residents, which then will enable visitors to connect really deeply with the community. So like I said, a lot of the things that we talk about on this list here aren't necessarily qualitative. There's not a number sometimes that we can put to these things, but the impact it has on community engagement is pretty significant. Now, obviously, this is a show where numbers are important, so I want to just briefly talk a little bit about data and the role of data in some of these DEI initiatives that I'm going to talk about on the next slide here. A lot of the things that we do is focused on being able to measure some type of outcome, and data is one of those outcomes. When you pair your DEI initiatives with tangible experiences that a visitor or a local can sign up for or can purchase, the outcome naturally is a significant amount of data. And I'd argue to say this is a bit of a different type of data perhaps than the general newsletter signups that you drive from your website. It's a different type of data than the website visitors and the outbound link clicks and the stuff that we're all very used to measuring. What programs like this can really do is provide you, one, with very niche customer data on perhaps smaller segments of customers that are interested in very specific DEI-focused things to do in your market, and we find that these types of segments actually perform significantly better in long-tail outreach campaigns, meaning email campaigns, retargeting campaigns. It's not all about the bigger is better. A lot of this, as we all know, is about intent, and having a smaller niche audience many times performs significantly better than the broad-based sort of targeting that we do. And then secondly, increasing engagement and membership with your local businesses is critically important. Some of you are likely membership-based organizations, some might not be, but this is a metric that you can track. How many businesses are we engaging with and working with as we're crafting these new types of experiences that perhaps are different from the traditional styles of experiences that we work with? Because traditionally, all of the businesses, and some of that we're going to talk about in the next slide, probably aren't necessarily eligible to fit into this traditional bucket of an experience. But when you start to create more unique, authentic, DEI-focused passes, it broadens the base of businesses that you can include in these programs, and that becomes pretty significant. And then lastly, if you're able to further own the customer journey, i.e. own the experience, drive the sign up and the purchase through your website, you inherently are going to capture a significant amount of first-party data. And especially in this world that now we're headed where cookies are going to be going away, it's critical more than ever to start to build your own audience and own that first-party data. And this can become a pretty significant driver of not only capturing the first-party data, but also driving specific newsletter signups. So I'm going to leave it with this slide, and I obviously can't go through all of these. We have a lot of passes. Like I mentioned, we've built close to 2,000 passes now. But if you scan that QR code in the upper right, that'll just take you to a PDF where you can click through all of these links. But these are a handful of experiences that really highlight those 5 points that I made earlier as to how these types of experiences can really drive community engagement. A couple that I'll just sort of talk through really quickly. The Visit Baltimore BOP Pass is a really, really cool experience. In Baltimore, BOP is a slang word for long walk. And this is a really cool experience where it guides you through the streets of Baltimore and helps you understand where Frederick Douglass, Billie Holiday, Harriet Tubman walked, and to learn about the important contributions that they had in that city. And this also includes businesses in this experience. And so through this experience, not only is this providing educational opportunities, but it's providing that economic support to local businesses, minority and Black-owned businesses that perhaps, like I said, maybe don't have an opportunity to fit into a traditional sort of experience, but we're able to drive customers into their doors. Another one I'll talk really quickly about is the Visit Tampa Bay. This is a really cool one because initially Visit Tampa Bay started by creating a attractions pass, a paid attractions pass product called the Riverwalk Pass. They then expanded the program and took a subset of those attractions that had accessibility with the attraction. They created an accessible Riverwalk Pass. Going back to that notion of driving engagement and providing opportunities for people with disabilities, this is a great example of a tourism, of a DMO that's created an accessible Focus Pass. And then lastly, Travel South Dakota did a great job with their Tribal Nations Passport. Again, focusing on a tribe in South Dakota, focusing on the history and also local businesses in the program. This was a gamified program where the customer actually earned points for the more sites that they visited, and they were able to get stickers and hats and t-shirts and all sorts of fun sort of experiences. So as I mentioned, feel free to scan that QR code. You can click through these experiences, and I appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thank you. Wonderful. So we're running a little short on time, and we had prepared a bunch of questions, but we're so excited to share what we're doing with you and hopefully spark some inspiration and ideas that I'm just going to ask one here that if we could all answer somewhat quickly, and then I'd love to ask one or two from you guys out in the audience. So what I'm going to ask of my panel here is actually our second question, because I want some actionable takeaways for everybody in this room to go back and implement. So what are some effective ways for destinations to authentically incorporate and intentionally incorporate diverse representation in their marketing materials and campaigns? But I would also back that up to your strategies before you even get to that part.
I think the framework is really important because it could be kind of go really big. I think the 4 R's is what we use to approach that. So the overarching concept, connecting people, culture, message, people. First and foremost, people in your community, even the most marginalized segments, accessible community needs, your target audiences. You can't be everything to everybody in terms of where they are, how they react to your destination. You have to really understand how to identify what people means. Culture, in terms of what are the assets, intangible and tangible, that you have in your destination that relate culturally to folks. Not only from a heritage standpoint or ethnicity, but also just what's happening culturally in the destination that's appealing to folks when you talk about some of these needs for connection. And then message, not just on your cover or visitor guide or website, but full funnel, always on measurable considerations. So, and the 4 R's under that, I think it's just the representation, the resonance, right? Are you talking about things in a performative way, or do they have meaning? Is it outside of Black History Month and Pride Month? Does it have a proper reach? Is it just a blog post on your website you feel really good about, or are you actually pushing that out in ways that you can understand what the learnings are and gather that first-party data that Mo was talking about? So those are just some of the steers that we use in frameworks to really architect these campaigns.
Kimber.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Danny. Community is at the heart of everything that we do. We work with Brothers of the Desert, which is one of our African-American LGBTQ groups. We work with a variety of people. We also are actually going to work with Danny as well on a larger scale, getting outside of that community and really turning to the experts to help us, better assess how we're doing within the community and within our marketing as well too. So Culturist group, I'm just going to name drop a couple people. Danny. Travel Unity is another great organization that we work with as well. They've done a full assessment of all of our website assets, all of our marketing, and even just what we do on a daily basis. So we have conversations with them all the time just to talk about anything that might be unknown to us or something that's concerning to us. We reach out to them. Also, we work with No Madness Travel Tribe and Avita Robinson, Black Travel Alliance. We consult with Dominique Lewis as well. Palm Springs actually sits on native land, so we work with Ayanta a lot. And then we also are working on getting our citywide autism certification. We actually have a dozen attractions and businesses that have their certification right now, and we're doing that through IBCCES. We have Wheel the World. Arturo, I think, is here in the house. He's actually going to be in market very soon to do an assessment of all of our accessibility. And then we also work with International Gay and Lesbian Travel Association as well, just to make sure that we're just doing everything spot on in our LGBTQ+ community. And we also work with Mo and Bandwango to help amplify all of these small businesses within our community that could not otherwise afford advertising. So just a lot of different approaches that you can take. Those are just some of the ones that we're doing at Visit Greater Palm Springs and Visit Palm Springs.
And then real quick, the last thing I'll just say is just experience design is critically important. The thoughtful selection of the locations you want to include are really important, because while you want to promote diverse locations and businesses, you equally need to ensure quality when you're doing these things.
Thank you so much. We are at time. I had a really good answer too, so come find me after. But I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank you guys for being here on very early last day. I believe the awards are next, so we're all very excited to see that happen. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make me lose it. Oh, come closer to the music. Need all of your company, and I just wanna feel